My message today is talking about temptation and how temptation, that there's a progression to temptation. And we're going to be looking at, in a moment, at 2 Samuel chapter 11, verses 1 through 5. And this is the moment after David has his biggest victory or the most casualties recorded in the Bible. He just gets done. There was over 40,000 men that were slain, along with 700 chariot men that were slain. And this is the largest massacre, death that was recorded in the Bible in his army. And so he gets done with this victory, along with numerous other victories. And we get into 2 Samuel chapter 11. And you will find that temptation just needs opportunity. Sin just needs opportunity. So in 2 Samuel chapter 11, I'm just going to read verses 1 through 5. 2 Samuel chapter 11, verse 1, it says, in the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful. And David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, "Isn't this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" Then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her. She had purified herself from her uncleanness. Then she went back home. The woman conceived and sent word to David, saying, "I am pregnant." I want you to notice that David didn't go to battle. Even today with an Israelite army, it's a common practice that the kings, they would go out to battle themselves. And David had just come home from a battle, and now he's feeling, and this is, I'm putting this in there, that he's feeling, he's a bit complacent. He's thinking, you know, and I'm good. I don't need to go out to battle anymore. Look at the battle, the victory that we just had. Look at how many men that we took down. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to stay home. And I said, I'm putting that in there, but it tells us here right away that they went out to battle, but David stayed home. He remained in Jerusalem. God makes a point of that to let us know, you know, he's not where he's supposed to be. He's not doing what he should do. And now opportunity arises. How often are we supposed to be doing something, and instead of doing what we're supposed to do, here we are off doing something else? Something that we probably shouldn't be doing. Giving temptation an opportunity in our life. You've heard the saying, and I've said it before, that an idle mind is the devil's playground. And you will see that David may have had just his largest victory, the most men slain that's been recorded in the Bible, but he is now in the biggest battle of his life. And this battle is the battle of the flesh. You know, we need to realize that any of us can fall into sin if given the right conditions. You know, and you may say, you know what, I would never do that. And maybe you have said it. You would see what someone has done, the sin that they have fallen into, and you would say, you know what, I would never do that. Or I would never act like that, or I would never be like that. But I would tell you that given the right opportunities, the right conditions, any one of us can fall into that sin. You know, I remember a situation with, a few years back. We were at a Bible study, and Tari is here, and another lady is here, and this wasn't about a sin issue, but in her mind it was a sin issue, and she was really struggling that Tari struggles with depression and anxiety, and she said, you know, I can't believe that a pastor's wife, someone that is supposed to be godly, how in the world you could ever struggle with depression. I have never in my life struggled with depression because I am a godly woman. That's what came out of her mouth. And she was shaming Tari. How could you ever be like that? After that night, we didn't see her for about half a year. And she came back and she said, you know what? After I said that night, you know, I'm in my late 50s. I have never had one. And that night after I said that, these past 6 months, I have fell into the worst depression that I couldn't even imagine. I didn't even want to live. How often do we say, that's never going to be me. I'm not going to do that. Given the right opportunity, given the right circumstances, any one of us could. And that lady came back and she was so apologetic and so embarrassed from her actions and her words that she said before, thinking that I'm so godly, that could never happen. You're a pastor's wife. You should be that godly that would never happen. But again, the right conditions, the right opportunity, any one of us can fall. All that temptation needs to become sin is opportunity. We need to realize that temptation in itself is not sin, but it needs opportunity to become sin. David, the moment that he saw Bathsheba bathing, at that moment when that temptation came, that was not sin. But when he gave way to opportunity, sin began to enter. What things in our life have we been tempted with? Have we given opportunity to it? Have we opened that door for Satan to enter into our life so that it evolves into a sin? You know, we can't always help it when we see. Like for David, he saw. But what do we do after we see? Now, there's a minister that I was listening to, and he said this. He said, you can't stop a bird from flying over you, but you can stop it from making a nest in your head. David, the moment that he saw Bathsheba, that wasn't a sin. You have to realize, David's up on the rooftop. He's not just some peeping Tom, some pervert thinking, I'm going to go up on the rooftop and to go out and to see some naked woman taking a bath. That's probably not his thought. Do you know that where David is at this time period, for him, the roof was part of the home. That would have been a normal part of his home that he would go up to, especially to get just a little bit of a breeze, to sit up on top of the roof, to walk around. That would have just been a natural thing that he would have done. So the moment that he went up there and he saw her, he wasn't up there to let's see what I can see. He didn't bring a lawn chair and binoculars and gawking. He just was up there just reflecting whatever he's doing. The Bible doesn't tell us all this, but this is my assumption of what he's doing. Because it's what we often do before we fall into a sin. When we're giving opportunity for sin to happen, when we're doing something else and not doing what we're supposed to be doing. Because remember, where's David? Where should David be? Like all the other kings are supposed to be in the spring of the year. They're out in battle, and David's just at home, up on a rooftop in the afternoon, and he sees this, not just a beautiful, but a very beautiful woman bathing. There's temptation. In 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 12 and 13. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 12 and 13, it says, "So if you think you are standing firm, be careful that you don't fall. No temptation has seized you except what is common to man. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will also provide a way out so that you can stand up under it." David is in a place of he's complacent with where he's at. I've had all these victories. I'm just going to sit back. I'm not going to go out and do what I'm supposed to do. I don't need to go out to battle. I'm just going to give temptation an opportunity, and I'm going to stay back at home. We need to be careful. Because we may fall, and that fall could be devastating. This temptation that progressed in David's life, it would be the sin that changed his ministry, that changed who he was as a king. Alistair Begg, he said, minister, he said this. He said, the same stairs that took David to the roof of the palace, those are the same stairs that could have taken him down. The Bible tells us that we will not be tempted beyond what we can bear, and that temptation, it's temptation that's common to man. It's nothing new. So anything that you are tempted today, it's nothing new. It's common. Everyone deals with those same temptations, those same struggles. And God is faithful, and He will provide a way out. Like for David, those stairs that he took to get to that rooftop, he could have taken those same stairs to get down, to not allow that temptation to progress in his life, to lead to a more darker and deceivious sin. Notice the progression of David's temptation. Back in 2 Samuel, it says, from the roof he saw. That was the first. David saw. He saw a beautiful woman. That's not sin yet. He just saw a beautiful woman. But then he allowed it to progress. He could have turned around. He could have walked back down those same stairs, could have given her the privacy that she needed. But he allowed it to progress. So he saw. Then he sent someone. He inquired about her. I want to know who that is. Tell me about her. And then it progressed even farther. He still has opportunity to go out of that sin, to go down those stairs. He doesn't stop at just seeing her. He doesn't stop at inquiring about her. He wants to know more. Then he sent messengers to get her. He actually had her taken. So it progressed from seeing her to inquiring about her to now having her taken. And it progresses even more. Now he sleeps with her. What temptation is in your life today? And you could say, there's no temptation at all. And I would tell you that's a lie. Because we are tempted all the time. There is temptation all around us all the time. Are we aware of how Satan is trying to tempt us? Because it's common. It's common to man. It's happening all around us all the time. And you are not immune from it. Because given the right circumstances, given the right opportunity, you yourself, me, myself, could fall to that temptation. Are we allowing it to progress in our life? Or are we taking the stairs back down? The stairs that David didn't take to get away from that temptation. The way that God provided out. In Corinthians it says that God will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you can bear. Meaning that no matter what temptation comes in your life, you will be able to walk out of it. You will be able to walk away from it. And you'll say, I can't. This temptation is too powerful. It has too much of a hold on my life. And I will tell you that it doesn't. If you turn to God, if you seek Him, you can walk away from that temptation. And how do I know it? Because the Bible tells us that God won't let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. And He provides a way out. Not sometimes. All the time. Do you see the way that He's provided for you to get out of that temptation? Whatever it is. For David, right now at this moment, it's lust. It's adultery. It's pleasing his sexual desires. And maybe that's not a temptation for you, but maybe for you it's money, it's possessions. Maybe for you it's gossip or whatever it may be, whatever sin it is in your life. And we have to realize that God is not the one that tempts us. It tells us in James chapter 1, verses 13 through 15. James chapter 1, starting verse 13, it says, "When tempted, no one should say that God is tempting me, for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does He tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when by his own evil desire he is dragged away and enticed. Then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is full grown, it gives birth to death." God will never tempt you. But He does allow us to be tempted. Because we are given free will. We have choices to make in our life. Do we choose righteousness Or do we choose to walk that path of sin? David had a choice. The Bible tells us that David is a man after God's own heart, and yet he falls into his greatest sin. That would be the most devastating for his life and his ministry and his kingdom. And we'll find out, another day. But David was a man of repentance. And we'll talk about that next week. But here in this moment, he gave temptation opportunity. He's not doing what he should be doing. He should be off in battle. He's thinking, you know what? I don't even need to be there. Look at the victories that we're having. Look at the men that are being slain. I don't even need to be there. I'm just going to sit at home and I'm not going to do what I'm called to do. I'm going to go up on the rooftop. And Satan knows. Now look at David. David's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. I'm going to tempt him. Oh, Bathsheba, she is very beautiful. He's going to see her and he's going to fall. Satan's going to see where you're weak. And he's going to, when you give him opportunity, when you're doing things that you're not supposed to be doing, when you're at somewhere you're not supposed to be at, that temptation is going to be there. It's going to be common. It's going to be a temptation that everyone deals with and struggles with. It's not going to be unique to you in any way. And yet we're going to be so blinded that if we're not careful, we're going to fall to that temptation. It tells us in James chapter 4, verse 7. James chapter 4, verse 7, it says, "Submit yourselves then to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you." Is temptation knocking at your door? Are you being tempted in areas of your life and you're struggling? Then I would ask you, have you submitted to God? Surrendered your life to God? Surrendered whatever it is you're being tempted about? Have you surrendered that to God and say, God, I need you. I can't do this without you. Have we submitted to Him so that we have the strength to resist the devil? Notice up to this point, David has yet to submit to God. And we'll talk next week that it even gets worse. David falls deeper into sin before he ever submits. At that very first moment, when David looked out across the horizon and he's glancing, and all of a sudden his eye catches this very beautiful woman bathing. It was at that moment, the very first beginning, where he should have called out to God. God, I need you. I need to submit to you now, so that this temptation doesn't overcome me. What is it in your life that you need to submit to God today? And just say, God, I need you. You know the temptation that's pawing at my door. I don't want that to be sin in my life. I don't want to give it opportunity. I don't want it to progress. God, I need you. I need to submit to you. I need to surrender to you so that I can resist the devil. So that I can resist the devil. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 22. 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 22, it says, flee the evil desires of youth and pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace, along with those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart. We need to flee the evil desires of our youth. You know, so many of us keep clinging on to our youth. You know, those sinful behaviors of our youth, those things that we haven't grown out of. Because we think, you know, oh, if I was only young again. That's the worst thinking that we could have, is that if we could only be young again. You know, young, you know, when we were stupid, when we were doing things that we shouldn't be, when we were at places that we shouldn't have been. And we often want to go back to, oh, if I was only young again. I don't know about you, but I don't need to learn again what I learned when I was there. We need to flee from those evil desires. We need to make sure that we don't allow them to make a nest. You know, like we can't stop a bird from flying over our heads, but we can keep it from making a nest on our heads. Are we fleeing from those evil desires so they're not making a nest in our soul and in our spirit? We need to make sure that we're not allowing that temptation to progress in our life. We need to stop it before it becomes a sin. Or at the very least, if it's already started to become a sin in our life, we need to stop it before it progresses to a point that it ruins everything in our life. David's sin, that temptation, initial temptation that he allowed to progress. He saw a very beautiful woman. She's bathing. At that moment, he's innocent. But then, he didn't just see her. Now he's inquiring about her. So now he's lusting. And then that lust, it turns to go get her. He has her taken. Some theologians would tell you that he didn't just sleep with her, he actually raped her. I don't know if that's facts. That's just how different theologians interpret the Hebrew words that are used. And then she becomes pregnant. Notice it points out that she had gone through cleansing. It says she had purified herself from her uncleanness, meaning that she just had her period. And after she had her period, she would have had to have gone through 7 days of cleansness. And so this would have been the 8th day. And meaning that the 8th day, she's probably not as likely to get pregnant. The 14th or 15th day would have been the more prime days to get pregnant. And yet, and maybe David knew this, and thinking, you know what, okay, it's safe. She's not going to get pregnant. Realize that when you fall into that temptation, you fall to that sin, anything's possible. Do you know that you can get pregnant any day of the month? Doesn't matter the cycle. And I'm not sure if that's the point that God's trying to make here, but it's pointed out. Again, I'd ask, and I have to ask myself, what temptation is knocking on my door? I know it's common to man. It's not unique to me. It's not unique to you. Are you allowing it to progress? Or have you taken the stairs? You know, the same way that you came in, did you take that same way out? So that it doesn't take hold of your life? Or did you give it more opportunity? Did you stay there? Somewhere you weren't supposed to be, so that it would take you captive. As I said at the beginning, temptation in itself, it's not a sin. We're all tempted. Everywhere we turn is temptation, in every form. Do we give it opportunity? Or do we submit to God so that we have the strength to resist the devil? Or do we bring a lawn chair? Do we bring something to drink? Do we put our feet up and allow that temptation to devour us? To progress to a point that we can't return. And next week we'll see how deeper that sin goes for David. But for us this week, whatever it is, whatever that temptation is, let's make sure that we're not giving Satan a foothold in your life. Realize that even at the very beginning, there's a way out. Realize that no matter how deep you are, how far you've followed into that temptation, how far it's progressed into a sin in your life, that way is still out. Because God will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you can bear. So no matter how much it is weighing on you, how much it has you pinned to the ground, know that that way is still out. God is still providing a way out, and it's your choice to stand up out from underneath it by submitting to God so that you can resist the devil, so that he will flee from your life. Amen. Have a blessed week. Lord willing, we'll see you next week as we dig into a little bit more of how deep the sin gets in David's life.